Good morning, Legacy. It is Tuesday, March 24th. Here's your less than 5-minute devotional for the day. Yesterday, we looked at the fact that in Deuteronomy chapter 8, the Lord says that he brought Israel into a period of testing. He says, "You shall remember all the ways that the Lord your God has led you in the wilderness these 40 years, that he might humble you, testing you to know what is in your heart, whether you would keep his commandments or not." And so what we looked at yesterday was just the fact that it's interesting that while Israel was in this 40 years of wandering, because they disobeyed the Lord rather, that he was also testing them to see what was in their hearts. Not that he didn't know what was in their hearts, but really I think it's so that they could know what was in their hearts. And today I want us to go to the next verse and just kind of play that out a little bit. Because the truth is, like we said yesterday, is that testing happens even in our lives. And testing happens for our good so that we can know really what's inside. Verse 3 in Deuteronomy chapter 8, verse 3, he humbled you. So this is the next verse. So the last verse ended that he might humble you, testing you to know what was in your heart, whether you would keep his commandments or not. He humbled you, and he let you be hungry, and he fed you with manna. He fed you with manna, which you did not know, nor did your forefathers know, that he might make you understand that man does not live by bread alone, but man lives by everything that proceeds from the mouth of the Lord. Wow, Jesus is actually even going to quote this verse in the New Testament when Satan's tempting him. Jesus quotes this verse. But here's what happened. He says he humbled you and he let you be hungry. Now, if we were to go back and look in the book earlier in the Pentateuch, if we go back into the actual story, it says they got so hungry they thought they were going to die. That's how hungry they were. And they came and they complained to Moses, "Oh, we're so hungry. Why didn't you leave us in Egypt? Because in Egypt we had food. In Egypt we wouldn't have starved." And so they said, "Why did you let us be like this?" And they didn't just get a little bit hungry. Like when you go from between breakfast and lunch and you get hungry in these days and you go to mom and you're like, "Can I have something to eat? I'm starving." That's not really starving. I think these guys were hungry. These guys were so hungry they thought they were going to die. And that's when the Lord provided manna. You remember manna? Manna is that bread that came from heaven. It wasn't like a sourdough loaf of bread every day that would come, but every single day the Lord would provide. Every day he would bring, rather than dew in the morning, when they would open their tent, there'd be like this bread-like flake. Almost, I don't want to call it snow, but almost think about like that as it would come down. It would be on the ground and they could pick it up and then they could make things with it. Every day for 40 years. Every single day, God took care of them. Every day, he said, "Only take what you need for this day, because if you don't, it rotted." So they were only to take enough for that day, and they had to trust God that the next day more manna would come. Ultimately, God says that was a test, because some people didn't take just enough for that day. Some people would take a whole bunch because they're like, "Oh, we need food for the future," and so they would take a whole bunch. And the next day there'd be worms in it and it would be rotting and it would be terrible and nasty. And God said, "See, I told you, take what you need and trust me for the rest." The description of that testing was so that they would know what's in their heart. He humbled you and he let you be hungry. And he fed you with manna, which you did not know, nor did your fathers know, that he might make you understand that man does not live by bread alone, but lives by everything that proceeds from the mouth of the Lord. So the Lord provided it every day. Your clothing did not wear out on you, nor did your foot swell these 40 years. Thus, you are to know in your heart that the Lord your God was disciplining you, just as a man disciplines his son. And then the passage goes on. Here's a point for us, just to conclude our thought. Testing does happen in our own hearts. The Lord does test our hearts, but it's not so that he knows what's in our hearts, because he already knows what's in our hearts, but it's to let what's inside come out and then we get to see it. And we go, "Whoa, where did that come from? That's inside of me." And that's your attitude. That's the way that you talk. That's the way that you think. And in these tough days, you're at home and you're with your siblings, or maybe it's just you and mom and dad, or however it is. And sometimes maybe you react in a rough way during this testing. Well, take time to stop and look at it, go, whoa, I just got tested. My attitude got tested, and look what came out. And if a wrong attitude came out, hey, that's a perfect time to say, Lord, just stop and say, Lord, forgive me. Help me to have the right attitude. Help me to be loving and caring and kind. Because just like when you take a test, a math test, or any kind of test at school, social studies, and you see that you're getting wrong answers, that means you need to go back and relearn the material. So as your heart gets tested in these days, friend, check out the answers that you're getting. Check it out and go, ooh, these aren't good answers. This test did not go well. Take time to stop, ask God for forgiveness, and then keep going.